There is a silence beyond sound, where the unconscious speaks without words. Carl Jung's silence is power. Words are weakness. The first reveals nothing. The second reveals everything. Master this distinction immediately. Those who talk expose their vulnerabilities. Those who listen collect ammunition. Choose your position in this exchange with absolute precision. There is no middle ground. Words function as strategic surrender. Each syllable transfers advantage to the listener. Each explanation diminishes your position. Each justification broadcasts insecurity. The talkative person hands over intelligence without receiving equivalent value. This exchange operates continuously in every interaction. You either exploit it or become its victim. Response signals subordination. Reaction confirms manipulation. Defense admits vulnerability. When you answer challenges, you tacitly accept the challenger's frame. You position yourself as someone who requires validation, someone who needs approval, someone who can be baited into disadvantageous engagement. Strategic silence eliminates this weakness entirely. Silence destabilizes opponents. It creates psychological pressure. It generates interpretive vacuum. When faced with absence of response, others project their fears into the void. Their insecurities surface without prompting. Their anxiety increases with each passing moment. This occurs automatically without additional effort from you. Silence works while you observe. Control exists in the pause between stimulus and response. Extend this pause deliberately. Make others wait for reaction that never comes. The person who speaks first loses position. The person who explains loses authority. The person who justifies surrenders advantage. These principles operate universally without exception. Apply them without hesitation. The amygdala activates during prolonged silence. This brain region governs fear and anxiety. It triggers stress response when expected social patterns break. When you withhold reaction, you directly manipulate others' neurological state. Their discomfort grows. Their self-doubt expands. Their need for resolution increases. This biological mechanism creates immediate advantage for the silent observer. Psychological projection operates during silence. People reveal themselves through their interpretation of your non-response. They expose priorities through questions. They display insecurities through assumptions. They broadcast weaknesses through accusations. This information transfer occurs one-directionally. You gain intelligence. They gain nothing. This asymmetry determines outcome. Strategic silence functions as interrogation technique. The unprepared mind cannot tolerate extended void. It fills emptiness with revelation, with confession, with nervous disclosure. Information emerges without direct questioning, without coercion, without effort. Patience extracts what force cannot. Silence accomplishes what pressure fails to achieve. Observation requires discipline, non-reaction. You must suppress impulses, contain responses, eliminate tells. While others speak, you collect data. You identify patterns. You map vulnerabilities. This intelligence gathering occurs only during strategic restraint, never during active engagement. The observer position provides exclusive access to unguarded information. Silence communicates dominance, not submission, not weakness, not indecision. The controlled non-response projects absolute command, complete self-mastery, and total positional confidence. This projection operates subconsciously on observers. They register your restraint as power, your composure as authority, your silence as strength. This perception shift occurs without verbal assertion. Unpredictability emerges from strategic silence. Your position remains unreadable. Your intentions stay concealed. Your next move exists as pure potential without telegraphing. This ambiguity creates defensive posture in others. They cannot prepare for what they cannot anticipate. They cannot counter what they cannot predict. This advantage compounds with each maintained silence. Time pressure increases during non-response. The silent party controls conversational tempo. Psychological discomfort builds in the speaker with each passing second. The need for validation grows. The desire for reaction intensifies. This pressure forces premature disclosure. Tactical errors. Strategic concessions. Timing determines advantage. Controlled timing through calculated silence. Information asymmetry creates negotiation leverage. The disciplined player receives more than reveals. The undisciplined player reveals more than receives. This differential determines positional advantage in all interactions. Maintain this asymmetry deliberately through strategic non-disclosure, through selective engagement, through calculated silence at critical junctures. Operate from subordinate position. Observing minds operate from dominant position. The distinction emerges from response patterns. Reactive individuals feel compelled to answer, to explain, to defend. Observing individuals select engagement points strategically. They respond only when response creates advantage. They maintain silence in all other circumstances. Communication exists beyond words. Presence communicates. Posture communicates. Timing communicates. These elements transmit intention more effectively than explicit statement, more precisely than direct declaration, more authoritatively than verbal assertion. Master these channels deliberately. They function when verbal mechanisms fail. They penetrate when words cannot. Justification signals weakness. Explanation admits doubt. Persuasion reveals need. Eliminate these tendencies completely. State position once without elaboration, without defense, without qualification. Then maintain absolute silence. Let implications settle. Let conclusions form. Let pressure build without intervention. This sequence creates maximum impact with minimal exposure. Strategic withdrawal preserves advantage. Not all challenges deserve response. Not all provocations warrant engagement. Not all positions require defense. Select confrontations based on positional benefit. Engage only when engagement serves strategic purpose. Withdraw without hesitation when interaction diminishes advantage. There is no honor in pointless expenditure, no victory in needless exposure. Silence functions as boundary, as barrier, as wall. Those denied response experience immediate status reduction, immediate positional demotion, immediate frame collapse. This occurs without explicit declaration, without announced rejection, without stated dismissal. The absence itself delivers the message with unmistakable clarity, with undeniable finality, with irrefutable authority. Disengagement communicates more powerfully than confrontation. Walking away silently outperforms arguing decisively. Withdrawal without explanation creates stronger impression than victory through debate. The unexplained exit leaves permanent question. permanent uncertainty, permanent psychological tension. These elements persist where verbal exchanges fade immediately. Eye contact paired with silence creates unbearable pressure. The maintained gaze without verbal cushioning forces confrontation with unspoken reality, with unstated judgment, with silent assessment. This combination penetrates psychological defenses directly, bypasses rational barriers completely, accesses emotional centers immediately. Deploy this technique selectively at maximum leverage points. Strategic timing determines impact. The right silence at the wrong moment fails. The well-positioned non-response at the perfect moment succeeds. Develop sensitivity to conversational dynamics, to emotional currents, to psychological transitions. These indicators reveal optimal moments for engagement and disengagement, for speech and for silence, for presence and for absence. Manipulators collapse without reaction fuel. Their techniques require response to function. Agreement validates. Disagreement engages. Emotional reaction rewards. Silence provides none of these elements. It creates operational vacuum where manipulation tactics fail completely. The manipulator confronts the void they fear most, the absence of effect, the failure of influence, the impotence of strategy. Narcissists destabilize during prolonged silence. Their psychological structure requires constant validation, continuous feedback, perpetual engagement. Strategic silence denies these critical inputs, creates immediate identity crisis, triggers compensatory behavior that reveals vulnerability. This reaction occurs predictably without variation. Exploit it systematically through calculated non-response. Silence exposes power dynamics instantly. The person who breaks silence first occupies subordinate position. The person who maintains silence longest holds dominant position. This principle operates in all contexts, all relationships, all interactions. It reveals actual authority beneath formal titles, actual influence beyond official designations, actual power independent of claimed status. Physical positioning reinforces silent authority. Occupy central space without apology. Maintain an erect posture without tension. Establish direct eye contact without aggression. These elements communicate dominance without verbal declaration. They establish presence without explanation. They command attention without request. Physical presence precedes and amplifies silent authority. Strategic mobility outperforms verbal commitment. Declared positions limit options unnecessarily. Silence preserves complete freedom of movement, complete tactical flexibility, complete strategic adaptability. Maintain this advantage through disciplined non-disclosure, through calculated restraint, through intentional ambiguity when explicit position serves no advantage. Respect requires boundaries. Authority needs limits. Power demands parameters. Silence establishes these elements without announcement, without negotiation, without compromise. The refusal to engage defines territory more effectively than explicit declaration, more permanently than stated position, more undeniably than verbal assertion. Silence builds walls no argument can penetrate. Reputation forms through consistent restraint, not through declared virtue, not through claimed expertise, not through asserted authority. Others observe your patterns of engagement and disengagement, your moments of speech and silence. your instances of action and restraint. These observations create lasting impression beyond any statement you might make, any position you might take, any argument you might win. Results speak with absolute authority. Achievement requires no verbal supplement. Accomplishment needs no explanation. Success demands no commentary. Let outcomes communicate what words cannot. Let consequences demonstrate what claims fail to establish. Let reality confirm what argument cannot prove. This approach eliminates all counter-arguments simultaneously, all objection instantly, all resistance completely. Timing determines conversation control. The pause creates emphasis. The extended silence forces attention. The delayed response establishes dominance. Master these intervals with precise calculation, with deliberate execution, with strategic intent. Conversation tempo establishes psychological hierarchy more effectively than content, more reliably than logic, more permanently than persuasion. Questions outperform statements strategically. The precise inquiry forces position disclosure, reveals thinking process, exposes preparation level. Questions transfer burden of response while maintaining position ambiguity, while preserving strategic flexibility, while protecting informational advantage. Deploy questions instead of statements whenever possible. Interrogate rather than assert. Probe rather than declare. Presence communicates more than credentials. Composure outweighs title. Calm destroys bluster. Focused attention dissolves opposition more effectively than argument, more completely than evidence, more permanently than logic. Develop these qualities systematically through disciplined practice, through intentional cultivation, through strategic implementation at critical moments. Authority emerges from perceived certainty, not from explained reasoning, not from detailed justification, not from elaborate argument. The appearance of complete conviction creates immediate credibility, immediate deference, immediate acceptance. Maintain this appearance through minimal explanation, through confident declaration, through comfortable silence following statement. Direct attention determines conversational control. What you highlight expands. What you ignore diminishes. What you question undermines. These mechanisms operate independently of verbal persuasion, of logical argument, of evidential presentation. Control focus through selective acknowledgement, through strategic emphasis, through calculated attention deployment at critical junctures. Facial expression communicates with precision. The slight smile signals knowing. The steady gaze signals assessment. The raised eyebrow signals skepticism. These communications operate beneath conscious awareness, beyond verbal interception, outside rational evaluation. Master these channels for maximum influence with minimum exposure, with optimal deniability, with complete tactical advantage. Movement creates immediate attention focus. Stillness projects immediate authority. Deliberate gesture commands immediate respect. These elements operate beyond language, beyond culture, beyond context. They access primitive brain functions that precede rational thought, that bypass intellectual defenses, that connect directly with instinctual response systems. Leverage these channels deliberately. The unexpected pause creates immediate tension. Comfortable silence amid discomfort projects immediate dominance. Maintain composure during chaos demonstrates immediate mastery. These contrasts establish authority without declaration, without justification, without explanation. Position yourself as the stable center in unstable environment, the calm point in emotional storm, the unmoved observer of reactive display. Silence allows deniability. Words create commitment. The unspoken position remains fluid, adaptable, adjustable. The declared position becomes fixed, rigid, defendable. Maintain maximum strategic flexibility through minimum verbal commitment, through calculated ambiguity, through deliberate non-position on non-essential matters. Preserve options through disciplined silence. Energy conservation determines endurance. The silent observer expends nothing. The constant speaker depletes continuously. This differential creates sustainable advantage in extended engagements, in protracted negotiations, in ongoing competitions. Reserve resources through strategic silence, through selective engagement, through disciplined non-reaction to provocations designed to deplete you. Position precedes argument. Status outweighs logic. Perceived authority trumps factual accuracy. These principles operate in all human interactions without exception. Establish dominant position before engaging content, before presenting evidence, before making case. This sequencing determines outcome more reliably than the strength of argument, more definitively than the quality of reasoning, more permanently than the validity of position. Silence eliminates targeting opportunity. The vocal person presents clear position for attack, clear statements to undermine, clear assertions to contradict. Silence offers no such vulnerability, no exposed flank, no revealed weakness. Strategic ambiguity creates defensive advantage that explicit position cannot match, that clear statement cannot equal, that definitive declaration cannot achieve. Remain deliberately undefined except when definitions serve specific purpose. Calculated silence creates mystique. The unknown generates fascination. The undefined stimulates projection. The ambiguous invites investigation. These elements create engagement without effort, without request, without pursuit. Others gravitate toward mystery more powerfully than toward explicit value, toward undefined potential work more strongly than toward declared capability, toward suggested depth more magnetically than toward displayed knowledge. Patience outperforms aggression strategically. The observer outlasts the actor. The silent outlasts the verbose. The composed outlasts the emotional. This endurance differential creates decisive advantage in extended engagements, in protracted conflicts, in persistent competitions. Cultivate superior patience through disciplined non-reaction, through strategic restraint, through calculated conservation of engagement resources. Controlled rhythms project immediate authority. Deliberately slow speech commands automatic attention. Measured movement demands instinctive focus. Unhurried response requires involuntary respect. These tempos create distinct perceptual advantage, distinct psychological dominance, distinct conversational control. Master these cadences systematically. Deploy them strategically at critical moments. Maintain them consistently through turbulent interactions. Silence creates interpretive vacuum. Others fill this vacuum with projection. with assumption, with extrapolation. This psychological mechanism transfers informational advantage to the silent party. The silent observer learns while revealing nothing. The speaker reveals while learning nothing. This asymmetrical exchange determines progressive advantage in extended interactions, in sequential engagements, in ongoing relationships. Selective engagement preserves tactical advantage. Not every statement deserves response. Not every accusation warrants defense. Not every question requires answer. Evaluate engagement opportunities based on strategic gain. Respond only when response increases positional advantage. Maintain silence when engagement diminishes dominance. This calculation determines sustainable superiority across multiple interactions. Strategic ambiguity outperforms explicit positioning. The undefined allows multiple interpretations, multiple approaches, multiple adaptations. The explicitly defined permits only fixed response, limited maneuvering, restricted adaptation. Maintain optimal flexibility through deliberate imprecision, through calculated ambiguity, through strategic non-definition, except when specificity creates immediate advantage. Silence as deliberate choice projects absolute confidence, not indecision, not uncertainty, not hesitation. Strategic non-response communicates complete self-assurance, complete positional security, complete situational dominance. This projection operates automatically on observers. They interpret restraint as strength, composure as authority, silence as power. This perception shift occurs without explicit claim, without verbal assertion, without stated position.